Welcome back to our discussion, Trust Who Your Data Tells You To, sponsored by Splunk here on Federal News Network. My guests today are Brigadier General Chad Radeke. He's Director of Cyberspace and Information Dominance at Headquarters Air Combat Command at the U.S. Air Force. And we have Sean Connolly, the TIC Program Manager at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. And before the break, we were talking about the data sources and the use of data and algorithms to ensure the trustworthiness of those people coming into our networks and all of the data informing that. That implies that there's maybe a new workflow for cybersecurity, because an algorithm in some ways is the central to a workflow. So maybe starting with you, Chad, we could talk about what are some of the ways you're changing the workflows at the machine level, and maybe branch that up to the people level, where you have a network operations center, a security operations center, and how the whole work operates to get to this zero trust mass telework type of mode that we're all in now.
Thanks for the question, Tom. I'll stick with my expertise and kind of the job that I'm in right now. You know, my primary function is to organize, train, and equip. And so as we start thinking about the zero trust environment and the strategy that we're trying to implement, not only in the Air Force, but then also trying to influence the broader DoD and federal government, my workflow tends to focus on organize, train, and equip. And so as you indicated, on the organization front, we're quickly moving from a model that we have grown to be accustomed to in the United States military, to one that more mimics what industry has already done. And so, as you alluded to, that includes the network operations centers and the security operations centers, and finding out how those two important entities talk with one another and how they share information. We're getting very interested in equipping our SOCs, our security operations centers, with an enterprise SIM capability. So the security information and event management, the ability to harvest large amounts of information and make decisions based on what we see. On the training front, we're focused on putting our cybersecurity experts through new and innovative ways of keeping current on the technologies that are out there. In some cases, that's formal schoolhouses. In some cases, that's taken advantage of some of the large pop-up opportunities that we've seen in this COVID environment, where we're doing a lot of collaborated training online and learning from others. And so that's part of the T. Now the E, I think, is where we've already got a lot of stuff in place. So we have some of the software-based agents that are out there, whether it's your HBSS or your SCCM or your Tanium. We have a whole bunch of event logs that come into a big data platform. And so we're seeing all of those things. Our recognition has been that we are not robust enough on the automation. And so in the previous discussion, we talked about the need for speed. And so we get to a speed environment by automating as much of that process as possible, bringing in large amounts of information, but analyzing what's going on, looking for behavior analytics, looking at the log analysis, doing all of those things to allow the high-end cyber operators to focus on those anomalies and not be beat down by the mundane.
Because earlier you mentioned too that you have the data generated by logs and so forth, and also commercially provided data that is related to cybersecurity and trust and user behavior. So that must add a wrinkle of complication to analyze those types of data from these multiple and maybe not always matching sources to be able to come up with actionable information or information that algorithms can deal with for what needs to be automated.
Tom, you make a very, very good point. The complexity of our Air Force network is very robust. We do have a number of different security systems, products, tools, applications that are all in place. And so it's that integration that, as you alluded to, creates the complexity. So absolutely, we're focused on reducing that complexity. We have a number of initiatives that are going on to take a look at transactional paths, to take a look at the security stacks that we have in place, and recognizing what are the key things that each of those products do, and then how can we reduce some of those products out so that we have a streamlined approach, the way that we manage our networks and manage our security response.
All right, and Sean, you want to tackle that one? Workflows and automation and the whole NOC, SOC situation.
Sure, if we can take this out a little bit. So there's these two camps we always hear about between monitoring and observing, right? Monitoring is more about watching the known unknowns of a system. It understands the system itself. It's very specific. As what's being fed, the intel, what's being monitored is much more high resolution, more system metrics and logs. It's very laser focused, a tight aperture, if you will. And then the observing camp is more trying to observe the unknown unknowns, looking for the abnormal. It's much more abstract, high cardinality, meaning many unique items in that data set, high dimensionality, mean different contexts of that system. What's the system look like if it's a normal system? What's it look like if some of the system's down? What does it look like when a user accesses the system? What does it look like when the system's backing up? It's much more broad focused. So from CISA, we're trying to thread both those needles at once, that monitoring camp and then that observing camp itself. So as we've moved forward to TIC3 across .gov, internally to CISA, we've also moved forward. So on our website, and if you look in the search engine for CISA and TIC, should be one of the first hits where all the TIC guidance is. There's also another guidance out there available to agencies, TIC and NCPS, National Cybersecurity Protective System. This is the method, one of the methods, I should say, how CISA gains awareness onto the agencies' networks themselves. And so with this new system, we call it CLAW, Cloud Log Aggregation Warehouse. So we're working with agencies to gain new types of telemetry above and beyond what was available before with the traditional sensors when we had the traditional TIC2 castle and moat system. But through that telemetry coming in, we have analytical tools that still support that prevention, detection, and response activities as before. Just the amount of telemetry is talked about before, the variety, the velocity has greatly increased. One thing that's different is with the cloud services, we're looking to use a lot more of the native cloud telemetry that's available from the cloud providers themselves. And we also look at some third party. There's some security vendors as a service that we're also using to enrich our awareness of that data. So all those type of data sets are now coming into us a way where it's a migration past where we were before.
And to the extent that you can describe it securely, General Radke, what types of predictive analytics do you do? I mean, I think of one form of analytics as being able to say, stop that person or don't allow this event to take place on the network because of what we know now. But the predictive analysis, I guess, allows organizations to maybe know what's around the corner, so to speak. And what kinds of resources do you have in place for looking ahead on a data basis?
Yeah, Tom, I think the answer to your question is we don't have enough in place yet. We have a vision. We have an understanding of where we want to go. We talked about those behavior analytics. We talked about the ability to pull together a whole bunch of data and aggregate that and make decisions based on that. But this is the bright future that we're pursuing. And so what I'll tell you, Tom, is that we've been on this journey in the United States Air Force for nearly 2 years now. In January of this year, even before the COVID response started taking place, Colonel James Lotspeech from our staff hosted an enterprise Air Force-wide Zero Trust Summit to start getting after some of these things. Recognition that we needed more artificial intelligence, more machine learning to be brought in place with all of the things that we already have. We have made firm commitments to try and build out those relationships that we talk about. So whether it's with industry, whether it's with our joint partners, whether it's with academia, everybody has great ideas on the way that these things can come together. The recognition and the realization, however, is that this is a hard transition, and so that's where we are today. There is the reality of we have a legacy network that is in place right now that is enabling the missions of our United States Air Force to fly, fight, and win. We're doing those things right now. As we start thinking about breaking a whole new paradigm and building a new network in parallel, that becomes pretty difficult. And so we do that, and we're taking the approach that we're going to do this smartly, that we're going to have a strategy in place, that we're going to have full coordination with the United States Cyber Command, for example. We have published a concept of operations that has been approved by Cyber Command for the Air Force to go out and pilot a zero trust implementation. We're taking a look at a software-defined perimeter associated with our Office 365 environment. And so we've got about 1,000 users that are going through testing right now on that new zero trust effort that we're pursuing. So part of that is going to inform the network of the future. And that network of the future is going to be organized with the NOC and SOC and SIM that we talked about. It's going to have the technology that's in place, but more importantly, it's going to have some of that emerging technology that we need to build in for that predictive analysis, the machine learning, the artificial intelligence, the ability to analyze high amounts of data and get better and quicker.
Yeah, and Sean, in the minute we have left, I guess I wanted to ask you too that something that Chad said is really important, and that is that you need to have algorithms that are informed by machine learning. Because just to take a simple example of, say, Marge, who used to come to the office 9 to 5, is now a teleworker, and maybe she's taking care of the kids' education in math from 2 to 4 in the afternoon, so she may log on at 11 p.m. or 3 a.m., which would be an anomaly in some systems, but now it's kind of normal for people that are not coming to the office. So maybe just briefly discuss the need to adapt in this data-driven analytical approach.
I think the Brigadier General was spot on when he was talking about how we were just starting down that path of learning about the new telemetry and how it adapts to this new environment, as you mentioned, Tom. Just to give an example of the speed necessary, a typical online platform or video platform like the one we're on today, just from one side of the connection to the other, it typically needs around 150 milliseconds to operate. Any higher speed, and you'll start to notice jitter or lag. Well, the blink of an eye is 200 milliseconds. So this needs to be faster than a blink of an eye. At the same time, to do this securely, have this connection be secure. So it's just the time involved, as you're alluding to, we need to start moving toward more automation, enriching it within the Intel feeds that we mentioned before, and being able to more automate the whole process itself. I mentioned the NCPS, the Einstein team before. Internally at CISA, we also have our very large program, the CDM program, Continual Diagnostic Mitigation, where we're working with the agencies to put more sensors and more tools to the agencies so they can monitor their environments in different ways. And these are just a couple of the primary programs we're using to gain that type of awareness, both the agency for their awareness and for CISA, from our vantage point, we have that perspective watching the .gov horizon, that whole panoramic horizon. So we are moving down that same path that the DoD is moving down also.
All right, well, I think everyone can be glad that we have gentlemen like you on the job here. I want to thank today's guests. Sean Connolly is the TIC Program Manager for the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency at DHS, and Brigadier General Chad Radeke. He's the Director of Cyberspace and Information Dominance at the Headquarters Air Combat Command for the U.S. Air Force. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. This is Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, be sure to log on to federalnewsnetwork.com and search Splunk.